You think you know a guy. What are you doing, Mayor Lucas? What are you doing going on CNN and playing the race game? Come on, man. Jeez.
Come on, man.
6:05. It is great to be here on a Thursday morning on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. Make sure you're downloading that KCMO Talk Radio app so you get your morning started with us right here on KCMO. So, obviously, the entire national storyline this week has been led by Washington, D.C., and the fact that the president has federalized their police department, and he's used the National Guard to help, obviously, with local crime issues in that city. Well, our mayor here in Kansas City, Quinton Lucas, who will be on the show at 7:30 this morning, he's on every Thursday morning. This may be one of our most exciting, robust, controversial conversations we've ever had, coming up in less than 1 hour and 30 minutes. He goes on CNN yesterday, and he plays right into their hands. He gives them exactly what they want. And that is using the race card to talk about what the president of the United States is doing with Washington, D.C., and it is so out of touch. It is so out of line. And, you know, it's like being disappointed in one of your kids. You know they know better, right? You know that deep down. I don't think he believes this. But he was playing a character role on CNN, and this is what it sounded like yesterday with Kansas City Mayor Quinton Lucas.
The cities that he's calling out and the cities that he's focused on, as you mentioned, many of them black mayors. Do you think there's race driving this?
You know, I think there is. I won't say that's like the totality of it, but I absolutely think it is. You're trying to create a counterpoint often in politics. And what is a better counterpoint than Donald Trump in whatever way you see him and a mayor? Black women mayors have been the subject of lots of attacks. I think Karen Bass, from really the moment President Trump came to office in L.A., is someone who's had to deal with that back and forth. He likes to pick fights. I think he sees the situation where there's that distinction. And by the way, this is one of the best fights to pick, because what I have to sit in front of you and say is, yes, there are homicides in my city. Yes, there is crime, but we don't think the same prescription of help is necessary. It's a tough position, but I think, frankly, this is the situation we're in, and he's not really interested in trying to save lives for us, but just exploiting the political issue.
What a bunch of BS. It's total bull. Everything the mayor said there is a word that I so desperately want to say right now. But Mark hasn't finished his coffee. John has not finished his Dr. Pepper. And I don't need these guys racing to the dump button and being a half second late. But that's
bullshit.
That works for me,
right?
Man. That works for me. First off, there's so much to dive into on what the mayor just said there. If Donald Trump wanted to just ignore inner city crime, he could. Inner cities didn't get him elected. Now, the 2024 election did see a shifting in the demographics in American politics. We know that, right? He grew the Hispanic vote. He grew the black vote, especially amongst working class and younger black men in particular. But the urban cores in this country did not get this man elected. Donald Trump's not doing anything for his voters by trying to clean up the crime in Washington, D.C. They voted against him 95-5. These are not his people. But it's the place that he calls home right now. And as he talked about on Monday in his press conference, he has friends who were attacked. He knows people who have been killed on the streets of Washington, D.C. But still, these were not his voters. He could have easily just whistled past the graveyard. But he said, you know what? No, the right thing to do is to do something about it. And that's deploy the National Guard, have them assist local law enforcement. Let's take over, which he's allowed to do in D.C. because of obviously the unique setup for Washington, D.C., take over a police department that is beyond wildly incompetent. The notion that this is about race. You know, two things stood out to me the minute he said that. Who has been the biggest political target of Donald Trump over the last several months? The first name that came to mind for me was Gavin Newsom out in California. White, heterosexual dude, at least last time I checked. He may switch that up to get a few more votes if he runs for president, but we'll save that, and we don't want to speculate at this time on that issue. Meantime, the largest city in the country, New York City, is run by a black man, Eric Adams. Trump and Eric Adams actually have a halfway decent relationship. Trump has not attacked Eric Adams at all. So if he was just going after black mayors because he thought it was politically expedient for him, and he was just trying to target black politicians, why would a straight white dude in Gavin Newsom be the one politician that Trump rips on more than anybody? And why would he not go after Eric Adams, a black mayor in the largest city in the country, which, by the way, is his hometown? None of it makes any sense when you actually break it down based on what our mayor, Quinton Lucas, said on CNN yesterday. I just don't know why he's playing right into their hand on this. And deep down, you could hear it in the way he answered the question. I don't think he wanted to say yes. But I think, like many, when they go on a cable news channel, they think they need to act. They can't just tell you what they think. They can't just let it rip. They think they have to play a role of someone for the audience, and you could hear it in the way that he paused.
And so I think what
the cities that he's calling out and the cities that he's focused on, as you mentioned, many of them black mayors. Do you think there's race driving this?
I think there is.
I don't think he wanted to answer it that way. And maybe that's me giving him the benefit of the doubt because we have a cordial relationship. We've known each other for many years here in Kansas City, and we talk every week on Thursday morning at 7:30. That conversation's an hour and 20 minutes away. Maybe you'll say I'm giving the mayor the benefit of the doubt. But I've heard him answer questions for 5 years every week on this show, and I can get a sense on what he's thinking when he's answering a question. And to me, that wasn't genuine. It doesn't make it right. Doesn't mean like, well, I'm giving him letting it slide because he's sitting here and not being entirely honest with the CNN viewer. I just think he said what he knew the anchors wanted him to say. And that's even more offensive to me in some respects.
Interestingly enough, Vince Colonnese, who's on after Kevin Keatsman Uncanceled here coming up at 11 this morning, Vince talked about how the media likes to shop for someone with their opinion.
Yes.
And maybe that's Lucas sitting there saying, okay, I know what I'm supposed to say.
Yes. I want to be back. I want to get invited back for another hit on CNN.
There you go.
This mayoral tenure ends in a couple of years. I got to figure out something to do after that, especially if they squeeze out Cleaver, right?
Yeah.
So that's the part to me where I'm like, man, I don't think you wanted to say that. I don't. It doesn't mean I'm not going to be annoyed, though. It's like being upset with one of your own children because you know they know better. I know he knows better. And I will ask him as much when he comes on this show coming up at 7:35 on 95.7 FM KCMO. And streaming, as always, on the KCMO Talk Radio app. It is great to be here on a Thursday morning, busy morning, and that mayor conversation cannot come soon enough. Mark, were you lit up? Did you watch the entire New Heights podcast with Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce, and Jason Kelce last night?
I watched about an hour 45 of it, and then YouTube crashed, so I had to listen to the end of the show.
Oh, okay. All right. You caught the end of it. You listened to the end. I'll tell you what, and we'll talk about it here throughout the morning on KCMO. Taylor Swift came off incredibly likable.
Agreed.
Incredibly normal, likable, and relatable. And you got to watch it. You can't just watch the clips. I watched about 45 minutes last night. And I'm like, you know what? We could all hang out. We could pop her here in the studio, and we just shoot the you-know-what, and it'd be cool. She is genuinely just, I think, a cool, chill person. Frankly, I think Travis is way above his weight class with her. Intellectually, sense of humor-wise, she has much sharper humor than he does. Travis is like, and God bless him, we love him in this town. He's a big meathead. That's what he is. He's just a big old meathead playing video games and, corny jokes. And Jason's hilarious. But I'm telling you right now, Taylor is smart and relatable and very likable if you watch that podcast from last night. And we've got stories from it we'll be sharing throughout the morning on KCMO, including the one that stood out to me above all the rest. We'll do it on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio. As I'm watching this last night, and it was weird, I stayed up later than I should have last night because I was watching some of this New Heights podcast where Taylor Swift joined Travis and Jason Kelce on their show. And Kate's watching it with me. Some of you are fine. I can deal with it on the text line. Many of you are commenting on the text line being like, boy, I hope your wife's okay with your Taylor Swift crush. I'm like, well, I think hers is actually bigger right now, and she used to hate Taylor Swift. So do with that what you want. But we were both fascinated by it because Taylor Swift had never done anything like this, just a full-blown, sit-down, casual conversation with her boyfriend and her boyfriend's brother, right? This had never happened. This was not like a forced sit-down on the Today Show. It was just basically three people that like each other having a conversation. It was very unique and a side of her that we had never seen. So I came out of this. And I didn't finish it because I had to go to sleep. I'm not going to be like Mark and come in here sleep deprived to try to do a show. Especially after filling in for Guy Benson yesterday. I did 7 hours of live radio, so I needed some sleep around here. But I watched 45 minutes, and I'm like, Taylor's relatable. She's likable. She's making fun of Travis, but not in, how there are women who are always ragging on their boyfriend, ragging on their husband, and they do it in a mean way.
That's sort of what I anticipated might be the case.
And it wasn't that.
No.
It was fun-loving. She was able to goof on him, but not be mean and talk down to him and demean him, but have fun about it. It wasn't one of those I'm going to talk down to you because I'm the woman and I'm Taylor Swift and all this stuff and this is how it's going to go. It was just fun-loving, easygoing, and very, very relatable. That's what the whole thing was, John.
Yeah, it's if anything, she was quick to put herself down, her self-deprecation was great.
Absolutely. She was very self-deprecating as well. But the story she told about how Travis wanted to meet her at Arrowhead when she came here a couple of years ago for the Eras Tour, and Travis just assumed because he was Travis Kelce, he could basically get wherever he wanted in the stadium, was hilarious. And it also was a relatable moment for Travis Kelce. I mean, this guy is the second biggest star that walks into that stadium on a regular basis after Patrick Mahomes. And he's getting told at Arrowhead Stadium, no, you can't come back here. You can't go. Wait, I've got a locker right down the hall. Nope, doesn't matter. Today, this is not your joint, buddy. And that made Travis relatable as well.
It was such a wild romantic gesture to just be like, I don't want to date you. I don't know. It was at first when I looked at it, I was like, this dude is.
That's what it does when you're on the stage and you perform in Arrowhead. That's what it did.
This dude didn't get a meet and greet. He's making it everyone's problem. That's what I thought at first. And then I was
You come to Arrowhead, I get to meet you. That's the perk of playing for the Chiefs.
You realize he didn't even reach out to our management. I was like, when this podcast came out, I was like, did he ever reach out to be in the tents or did we know he was in the building? He came with Pat. And he thought that because he knows the elevator lady that he could talk to her about just getting down to my
That's how it works. You just go.
And I got denied.
That's how it works in 1973.
The elevator wasn't invented.
But yeah, he really just was like, I know a guy. I can figure this out.
That is so freaking hilarious. That Travis Kelce, who somewhat understandably is like, this is my house. I own this place. I go to Super Bowls here at Arrowhead. I'm the second most famous person that walks into this building. But when it's a Taylor Swift concert, you don't go where you want, my man. This ain't your house. And he just figured, I know the elevator lady. She'll let me through. It's like, and then she goes, yeah, maybe that worked in 1973. When John was buying $8 tickets to see I
related to that, yeah.
John was backstage with all the big stars here in Kansas City back in the heyday.
$10 tickets to see the Eagles.
Exactly. Those days are over, okay? Especially when you're talking about the biggest superstar on the planet in a sold-out stadium. That was such a great moment, and watching their back and forth was a real joy. Steven's in KCK. What's up, Steve?
Wow, I'm sure everybody watched it. It's got 8.3 million views already. I think the all-time record was Musk and Rogan with 69 million U.S. record. But this kind of confirms what I thought all along. Is I think there are a bunch of people kind of firing off these political pronouncements. When she endorsed Biden, I don't think she's political at all. If she wasn't in an artist sort of music space, she could be a MAGA person. I mean, we could. I kept thinking the whole time, how is she not a Republican? That's maybe it's
well. And did you hear? She talked about how she doesn't like social media. She enjoys sewing and cooking and sourdough bread and all these things that, people that are more traditional in nature enjoy doing. Like, she has an old school outlook on life. And I think that she's one of these individuals that as she continues to grow up, for lack of a better word, but just kind of go through life's motions, she'll realize she's not what Hollywood wants her to be when it comes to how she looks at the world.
Well, she won me over with the Xavier Worthy story. I can't dislike anyone who is excited when they got Xavier Worthy, for Mahomes. I mean, she is really all in trying to learn this stuff. If she is getting excited over the wide receiver room.
She's the one, as she said, who informed Travis that they drafted Xavier Worthy. What does that tell you?
That's fantastic. Listen, let's convert Taylor to MAGA. That should be the goal of the next 2 or 3 years.
One step at a time. All right, I'm not doing that. But hey, you know what, Steve? If she's here in Kansas City all the time, maybe she's tuned in to 95.7 FM KCMO. There you go. That's good stuff. Thank you to Steven in Kansas City for that. I'm just saying, she's right down the road here. It's where they live. Probably, 10 minutes from our studios here. So she may pop in the car, go get her sourdough, fire up the sourdough bread, get her sewing kit for the day, and there you go. It's right on her number one preset, 95.7 FM. I love it. I think the MSNBC anchors might have stopped doing their cocaine, at least for a day yesterday. If you missed it, they were actually making sense. I couldn't believe it. But you know what? Give them credit. I was filling in for Guy Benson yesterday, so it was a nice 7-hour radio day. You might be sick of me after hearing me on the drive home, but we're back. We're doing our local morning show here in Kansas City. And I caught wind of this clip from Morning Joe on MSNBC talking about what's going on in D.C. Obviously, the president of the United States taking over the police force there, using the National Guard to help local law enforcement. And Chris Matthews, of all people, Mika Brzezinski, Joe Scarborough, are having this conversation admitting that those who are opposing Trump on this are falling for it. They're playing into his hand. And that includes our Kansas City Mayor Quinton Lucas, who went on CNN last night and fell for the exact same trap. Here was MSNBC yesterday when they came to the very obvious conclusion that most people with common sense have come to at this point on this issue.
And the murder rate, you can't keep saying violent crime is down, but the murder rate's up. To the average person, the murder rate's about life and death. You don't brag about a rising murder rate. And the Democrats are, I agree with you, Mika, they're falling into the trap of defending what's indefensible.
It's a trap. Yes, it's a trap. I mean, if it's not a winner politically to say, oh, you're wrong, look at the data. Because, if one violent crime happens in a very heavily populated part of the city, people hear about it, and it's visceral. They don't want it. And they'll gravitate to the person who appears to be doing something about it.
That's exactly right. Things I never thought I'd say for 500. MSNBC, Mika Brzezinski, Chris Matthews, who infamously got a tingle up his leg during the Obama era. Exactly right. God bless them. They are spot on this issue. Arguing whether it's D.C. or here in Kansas City, it doesn't matter where you are having this conversation about crime. When you're the person who's perceived to be the one wanting to use law enforcement and give law enforcement more resources to reduce violent crime, homicides, theft, whatever it might be, and you're going to oppose that person, you're latching on to a political loser is what you're doing. And I don't even know if this was like part of Trump's plan, to be honest. Maybe there is some 3D chess going on here where he's like, they're going to oppose anything I do. So I'm going to use my powers, because Washington, D.C. is a unique situation and I can do this, to help out law enforcement, to arrest criminals, to take illegal weapons off the streets. And they're going to come out against me and they're going to look like a horse's you-know-what. Maybe there is 3D chess, but once in a while, I think Trump just gets lucky because his political opponents are so triggered and so stupid with this stuff sometimes, John.
What does it say when common sense prevails and they think it's setting a trap? You don't have to think about it, Mika. It's common sense.
But I give her credit, though, because here's the thing. A lot of the people that are in her shoes right now, they're not saying that. They're not coming to this conclusion.
No, the whole mindset that it's a trap.
I know. But it's like, at least she's trying to come to the obvious conclusion.
The light is on.
That Trump is actually winning on this issue. Guy is in Topeka on KCMO. What's up, Guy?
The federal government's been taking over police departments for many years. They send... they believe they've got a police department that's got too heavy-handed in enforcing laws. They send in and do consent decrees and stop the police work from happening. So I don't know. This is a good benefit for those citizens that live there in D.C. We're making the police department do its work to keep them safe.
95.7 coming in loud and clear out there in Topeka, my man, right?
No, exactly. We appreciate what you guys are talking about.
Thank you, Guy. And it's not really, this question that I'm going to ask is not really for Guy, but it's more for those in Kansas City. Would you take federal law enforcement help right now on the streets of Kansas City? You'd be insane to say no. Let's not forget we did it during Operation Legend 5 years ago, and that was during the Bill Barr era under Trump 1.0, and it was a massive success. Got hundreds of illegal weapons and bad guys off the streets of Kansas City. Who's against that? Who's against that? That was 5 years ago in this town, almost to the month. So yesterday, as MSNBC is having this awakening, and they're realizing, hey, Trump is setting up his political opponents to fail here. The mayor of Kansas City goes on CNN last night, and Quentin Lucas is going to be here coming up at 7:30. And, of course, he's going on CNN. He feels like he's got to play a role here. It's acting, in large part. And here was his conclusion on what's gone on in D.C. this week and how this applies to other cities around the country.
And so I think what most reasonable people would say is there are certainly situations where help could be a great thing for America's cities. But threats of takeovers, just sending hundreds of forces, troops in some ways, into America's cities is not something that's making anyone safer, particularly if you think about what a lot of our urban violence is. Retaliatory violence, gun-related violence, those sorts of things. And so, this is not helpful in what they're doing now. I think it is a political stunt. And that's what you'll continue to see as he looks to other cities.
It is an important distinction that we'll continue to make going forward, collaboration versus a takeover.
Oh, gosh. Tell that to our friend Cassie Smedley, who was on the show a couple of days ago, grew up here in Kansas City, has been living in D.C. for 15 years, had a couple of little babies in the last few years, and moved out when she realized her neighbor said, hey, call me when you get home. Because before you turn your back to take those babies out of the car, I want to keep an eye on you to make sure you're not about to get carjacked. You think she'd take a couple of National Guards troops on the street corner in her part of Washington, D.C.? The way the mayor framed it there, sending hundreds of troops onto the streets of Washington, D.C. Yes, sign me up. When's the last time you were walking around a bunch of cops and felt less safe about your situation? Be honest. Be real. You don't. Why do you think the police have a presence at major events? Sporting events, airports, wherever it might be, right? You go, and when there's a lot of police, they're making their presence felt for a reason. It's a safety move. This is so out of touch. And the mayor will be here on KCMO coming up in 20 minutes. You do not want to miss this one. It's going to be a good conversation. Kevin in Overland Park on KCMO. Go ahead, Kevin.
Hey, Pete. I just think, like Mika said, it's a trap. I say, let them fall in the trap. Let them jump right into it because, the quiet, registered voters are going to make their, they'll make their statement next elections. It's like, let them fall in that trap and see how many voters they continue to lose, for one. I wouldn't be surprised if Mayor Q turns them down, too, as far as troops and stuff, because he drinks that same Kool-Aid.
Well, I'm not sure if he's going to be able to turn them down. We'll see. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it. Operation Legend, he didn't have a say. They just came here and helped out, and that was that. John in Topeka, you're on KCMO. What's up, John?
Hey, good morning. When they said that the murder rate was up but the violent crime was down, that's due to their underreporting of the violent crimes. But the people it's happening to out in the neighborhoods and out there in the real world, when they're seeing the carjackings happening, when they're feeling it, their friend or their brother or their sister or their daughter or their child is being threatened with all these crimes, they see it, they feel it, and these people that are insulated from that, the talking heads, they have to come to terms with it, and they think it's a trap when everybody else is going, hey, this is real out here, and you guys are denying it because you're in a bubble.
They are, but here's the weird part about it, too. I mean, you've heard from a lot of these people that work in D.C., and they've admitted, even those that clearly don't like the president, they've admitted that whether it's them or their friends or family or people they know, they've had dangerous situations occur on those streets in D.C. There's no benefit. There has become a political benefit for Trump here because his opponents have just lost their minds. But when he started this, there was no inherent political benefit for him. These are not his voters. D.C.'s a 95-5 blue to red city. It's not like he's doing something for his voters, but he's doing something for the city that he lives in. He could easily just whistle past this graveyard. Doesn't impact him. He's the most guarded, protected man on the planet. He's going to be leaving D.C. in 3 years. He'll probably never come back. But the fact that his political opponents lost their minds over it says a lot more about them than it does about him. And I can't help but think about the Ronald Reagan line, quote, "We must reject the idea that every time a law is broken, society is guilty, rather than the lawbreaker." Reagan went on to say, "It is time to restore the American ideal that each individual is accountable for his actions." What a novel concept. A lot of hype ahead of tomorrow. Trump, Putin in Alaska. Going to be a big meeting. Trump had a Zoom yesterday with the European leaders, and they said they were cautiously optimistic. That's huge. So I had on KT McFarland. She's a former Trump national security advisor. She worked under 4 presidents, Nixon, Ford, Reagan, and Trump. And she was on yesterday on the Guy Benson show. I was filling in. And we were talking about the fact that, Trump's got this meeting in Alaska. And I asked her how important it is that it's on U.S. soil. And she noted that having it here in the United States, having it in a place that we bought from Russia when Russia was in near financial ruin, is a reminder that we've got the upper hand. Psychologically, she was noting the fact that we're meeting in the United States in a place that used to be owned by Russia until Russia hit financial ruin is a great mind game that's being played by the president of the United States here. And I compare it to football. Trump's got this game on his home field. And while if you're watching on TV, it doesn't mean as much to you, when you walk into that stadium You've got your locker room. You slept in your bed. You've got your home crowd. It's your field. You know every nook and cranny of it. And there's a mindset to it that when it's on your home turf and you're playing in that home stadium and the roar of Arrowhead is behind you, there's just an extra pep in your step. Trump's not going to Russia. That would have been emasculating if Trump had to go to Russia for this meeting. If he had to go to Russia to meet with Putin to try to put an end to the war, it would have just looked bad. Especially after Trump said on the campaign trail, hey, I'm going to end this thing as quickly as possible. It's not my war, but I'm going to end it in a few days. And then after 7 months in office, he's got to go with his tail between his legs to Putin's home to try to end the war? No way. You want to meet? You're coming here. And the fact that Putin is coming to the United States, while we don't know what his motivation is, just having it in the U.S., having it on our soil, and having Putin finally come to the table, to me, is a massive sign that he knows he has to cut a deal. He knows that this may be his last opportunity to figure out a way to get out of this mess of a war that, yes, he might be able to win. I mean, just through attrition. It might take 1 year, it might take 10 years. But if Putin wants to win this war, he can probably win it. And he's going to lose a lot of men. It's going to be a lot of cost to him financially, economically, and, of course, in manpower. But if he's dead set on doing it, he can do it. But if he's finally come to his senses here, this may be his last chance to get that off-ramp that he definitely needs. Now, speaking of Arrowhead Stadium, New Heights podcast last night with Taylor Swift. I have never actually watched an episode. Like, I've seen a lot of clips, obviously, but I've never seen an episode all the way through. Taylor Swift was incredible.
Same for me. I've never seen the whole episode, seen clips.
Yeah.
I also agree on your impression.
She was so good last night. And when she told the story about becoming a football fan, I mean, come on. This is like every guy's dream. You find a girl, you fall in love, and you make her a football fan.
I know what a first down was. I didn't know what the chains were. I didn't know what a tight end was.
I am forever thankful for you diving into the football world wholeheartedly.
Oh my God. I fell in love with it. I became obsessed with it. I became like a person who was running through the halls of my house screaming, "We drafted Xavier Worthy!" And my friends are like...
Come on. That is every dude's dream right there. Find a girl, like her, fall in love with her, and she becomes a diehard football fan? Are you kidding me?
Watching the draft.
Watching the draft? I'm convinced the only red-blooded Americans at this point who hate Taylor Swift are just jealous. You watched that last night, and there is nothing that you will dislike about Taylor Swift. Smart, funny, relatable, self-deprecating. You check off every single box with Taylor Swift last night. And we'll have more audio throughout the morning here on KCMO. Got to make these quick. Callers after Mayor Lucas. Let's start with Allie in Kansas City. Go ahead, Allie.
Hi there. So I had jury selection Monday in Jackson County. I wasn't selected, so I'm allowed to talk about this. But it was actually for a murder trial, and the murder was not retaliatory. It was completely random and in broad daylight. And the thing that I think is so crazy is that the jury was asked who's been affected by a violent crime, you or a loved one. Nearly every hand was in the air. And as these people explained their stories, it was not retaliatory violent crime. It was random. It was crazy. And also, the same group of people was asked about property crime and if they'd had help, if they called for help. And the amount of people that said, I just accepted that help wasn't coming. I called the police. They weren't going to come. They said they couldn't help me. They said they couldn't do anything. That was almost everybody who had property crime. So the thing that I think is so disappointing is that no matter how you feel about Trump, it's okay to admit that Kansas City needs some help, that it's violent, that it feels unsafe, that it feels different than it used to feel. I grew up here and I think it feels so different, but saying that it's not an issue, that it's all retaliatory is crazy, because I just sat in a room with random people and nearly everyone has been affected by some level of crime, and no one's even reporting it now because they don't feel like help is on the way or police are coming. So these crime rate numbers aren't even right when you can't report it because nobody's coming to help you.
Thank you for that. That is very well said, Allie. I appreciate your call.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Allie in Kansas City. Wow. That's a great job. Last word, Wes and Gladstone, 30 seconds. Go.
Hard to follow that. I think you got your caller of the day, but I wanted to talk about these traps that Trump is setting. No one under 50 is probably going to know what I'm talking about, but how often did the Roadrunner set a trap for Wile E. Coyote? Never. He kept smacking himself with that Acme anvil over and over again. The Dems' problem is they think they're dealing with a rhino who's afraid of his own shadow, and that ain't Trump. Oh, well said. And my hat's off to the mayor again for coming on. I don't agree with him, but at least he's coming on for you to watch him chase his tail.
Well, I got your Wile E. Coyote joke, too, and I'll be 37 in a few weeks, Wes, so don't sell yourself short, buddy. Thanks for the call. I appreciate it.
All right.
There you go. All right. Good calls there. We got the news coming up in 1 minute. We have we got 2 hours to go. This is wild, man. I don't know what's going on MSNBC. Holy cow. Especially on that Morning Joe show. Joe Scarborough is just torching his own political party. And we played a clip for Mayor Lucas this morning of MSNBC from yesterday, basically saying to their own party, stop with this, stop going up against Trump on this crime deal in major American cities. Stop. And you'll hear more from Quentin Lucas next hour. But this was just moments ago. MSNBC, let's roll it.
The answer to this problem for Democrats is not, oh, everything's okay. There's nothing to see here. Move along. Oh, Washington has dropped 24% or whatever in crime. Well, let me give you some other numbers. The Washington Post took a poll at late April, early May. 91% of Washington residents say crime is a problem. 91%. 51%, it is an extremely serious problem. And John Heilman, we've had people before put this in racial terms. And this is, I must say, this is one thing that I think Democrats have gotten so wrong about crime. Let me just read the Washington Post here. There are stark divides among lines of race and income in the poll, with black residents and lower income residents significantly more worried about crime than white residents and those with higher incomes. As they were last year, black women are among the most concerned, with 65% saying crime is a very or extremely serious issue, compared with 82% who said the same thing last year.
Wow. Joe freaking Scarborough for the win. I didn't think I'd ever hear something like that out of him. That is just wild.
People are aroused. I haven't seen people so aroused in a very, very long time.
I don't know what to tell you. I mean, the guy knocked it out of the park there. You know, they're trying this whole song and dance of like Trump's a racist. And, you know, Mayor Lucas went there last night on CNN. I asked him about it this morning, but he went there last night. He did.
The cities that he's calling out and the cities that he's focused on, as you mentioned, many of them black mayors. Do you think there's race driving this?
You know, I think there is. I won't say that's like the totality of it, but
That was Quentin Lucas last night on CNN. Joe Scarborough just put him in a body bag. I don't know if he was talking exactly about Mayor Lucas, but he highlighted the fact that, you know, some people are making it about race, but look at the numbers. It's poor people, it's black people who are far more concerned about crime in many major American cities than white rich people are. Why? Because one of those two groups is more likely to live in the crime-infested dump areas of too many of these cities. It's that simple. Now, eventually, this stuff does obviously impact everybody. You've seen that, unfortunately, here in Kansas City. You've seen that in Washington, D.C. as well. But Joe Scarborough just body bagged, whether it was direct or indirect, the mayor of Kansas City with data, with facts. Being against the guy who's like, I want to help get rid of violent criminals on the streets. No, sir, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know how to do it. Well, neither do you guys. You've got no idea what you're doing. You're clueless. You've been running these cities for decades, and they keep getting worse, especially the last 5 years. You've lost the right to sit there and say, leave us in charge. We know what you're doing, or we know what we're doing. You have no clue what you're doing. Mike and Olathe, go ahead.
Hey, man, I don't. Your thunder is great. I just sit there, and it's almost like it's hard to explain watching actual people that have been getting in their own way for so long and hating Trump so badly, now preaching, we need to get out of our own way, because ultimately people are going to come to realize what's on the ground is actually happening and what we're saying isn't true, and we got him. But this dude is the only guy in my lifetime, and maybe in our lifetimes ever, that could be doing this. But he's finally, I think the battleship, the big boat is turning. It's taken a while, but it's starting to turn. And my gosh, if it affects the politician, maybe there'll be a smidgen of harmony. But it's really bizarre to see these guys actually talking like this. I don't know how else to explain it.
When you say these guys, who do you mean exactly?
I'm talking about the Matthews and Scarborough for sure, because he was obviously a fake Republican back in the day, but he helped balance the budget with Gingrich. It's a weird deal, the dynamic. But to see actual pundits doing that and saying it, because, the Schumers and Pelosi's are quiet right now. They're not saying anything for some weird reason, and if they, whatever. But it's like the derangement is sort of starting to grow a little weaker, maybe it, I don't know. It's hard to explain because we haven't seen it for so long, and it's been so unreasonable and chaotic.
Yeah, it definitely has been. And maybe some people are coming to their senses on this stuff. But politically, you don't want to be on the side of, please, we've got the crime under control, because we're down a hair from where we were a year or two ago when we've skyrocketed these numbers from where they were a half decade ago. You don't want to be on that side of this whole deal, I promise you.